Steady, dear friend, steady can indeed lead to surely. When we say this, what we mean, shall we say, does in fact in part belong to the notion of, quote, belief. Belief, dear friend, is in fact what has brought you to this moment. We have elaborated on this, shall we say, a bit more within the past week or two within XO'DRIA's energy. However, it is important to share within this moment with more than just simply XO'DRIA. Belief, as we've stated to her, belief is what has gotten you here. Your belief is what has brought you to this point. Your belief within yourself, your belief within your system, shall we say, indeed, your belief within your community, and as well as your belief within your, shall we say, quote, purpose. However, dear friend, truly indeed, those beliefs are being tested within this, quote, period of time. And we have told you within, shall we say, a previous recording, that there will come a time where, shall we say, your limits will indeed be tested as to whether or not you are as infinite as you do so choose to believe. While we do feel as though this may not be, shall we say, quote, as solid of a concept as we would imagine you believe it needs to be at this point. But dear friend, belief is indeed the start. And belief can in fact start small. Queen of Swords in reverse. Dear friend, belief can in fact, shall we say, be, quote, utilized in a form that is detrimental to many, so to speak. And while we begin to elaborate, we wish for you to remove this notion from the aspect of yourselves and place it upon, shall we say, the world as a large. A large entity, so to speak. Belief can come in many forms. Belief, dear friends, truly is indeed impartial to what it is that, shall we say, quote, your preference is. For belief can indeed be, shall we say, ingrained within you from many different sources. This will indeed, shall we say, be, quote, a big concept to reduce to this video. However, if you do so wish, we would like to formulate, shall we say, a reasoning behind this. Good and, quote, evil. Or shall we say good versus evil. These notions have fallen into the forefront of your society within these recent, we would like to say, months. Within these recent months, the notion of good versus evil has indeed become, shall we say, quote, a large entity concept. And when we say this, we mean to simply say that the earth is choosing to, quote, manifest this form of belief. Dear friends, there are things that are aligned to us within our frequency, and there are things that are not. And as we would like to bring to your attention through, shall we say, this, quote, Queen of Swords in reverse, belief will dictate the power you choose to wield. belief will choose to dictate the power you choose to wield. Now, when we say this, we simply mean, quote, your belief is indeed everything. Your belief is indeed everything. Would you like to elaborate, dear friend, on what it is that, shall we say, you have concluded within these, quote, recent months? And I think I know what the elaboration is supposed to entail. I had basically a conversation where I was trying to state the way that I see things happening in the world right now, and that I personally didn't resonate with the term evil to describe what was happening. Like, this is not to belittle what's happening by any means, because I've spent many a days charged up about this world. But I've realized that people are choosing to play the role that they're in. And this turned into a form of conflict when I was trying to basically express what I was saying. And like I don't want to say to never mind the other side, because that's not really what I want to say, but it was more along the lines of, it's happening. It is happening. So the question is, what are you going to do? Very good, dear friend. For as we stated to you before, this is, in fact, shall we say, a level of, quote, emotional separation from, shall we say, the upheaval that is taking place energetically. Truly, indeed, there is a purpose to this. And as we have stated, shall we say, quote, light is indeed, shall we say, multi-purpose. It is all light. It is all light. It is all light. We hear you beginning to, quote, dispute this statement with, shall we say, the concept of darkness being a sub-creation. But dear friend, truly begin to, shall we say, trace it to the source. It is all made of one. Therefore, it could not, shall we say, be, quote, anything different than, shall we say, this light. Now, the light you choose to wield, dear friends, is strongly laced among and between your beliefs. It is strongly embodied within, shall we say, the energy that you, shall we say, quote, own. These cards are like this right now, and it feels very particular. So I think I'm going to stick with that. This presentation. Dear friend, for we do indeed offer you, shall we say, quote, a detour to understanding what it is that we truly mean to tell you. Eight of Pentacles in reverse, as well as the Ace of Cups sideways. The Ace of Cups, dear friend, is where we will indeed begin. We've stated, shall we say, that, quote, disconnecting through emotional means can in fact be indeed very possible. And this, dear friends, will as well, shall we say, quote, save you, for a lack of a better term, quote, save you from, shall we say, the chaos or the energetic commotion, so to speak, that is indeed swirling within your planet's system. The emotion truly runs many more things than many humans tend to realize. For while many of you do understand that emotions can indeed, shall we say, quote, interfere or cause hindrance when it comes down to, shall we say, the negative emotions, so to speak. You do understand, dear friends, that emotion can indeed not be avoided. Emotion is an unavoidable force, regardless of what it is that you may indeed believe. Think about it. Emotion is within everything you do. And while this may in fact not seem, shall we say, as, quote, news to some, it is possible that you may overlook this within the most basic, shall we say, of your tasks. Now, when your emotion, shall we say, interferes with what is that you truly, quote, need to do, though necessity is indeed subjective, depending on one's goals, shall we say, the negative emotions, dear friend, create what we could call a form of We hear XO'DRIA asking if this is the word that we truly mean to use. However, the word communion is indeed what we would like to address. Communion, dear friends, through a spiritual lens, can come in many forms. And when you are in fact entangled within, shall we say, undesirable, quote, emotions, this is indeed a form of communion. Communion with energy. Communion with, shall we say, quote, your system, so to speak. However, dear friend, do indeed take note that this communion can in fact turn into chaos when one's awareness is not present. This, dear friend, shall we say, can indeed formulate a belief that one is not in control. However, as we brought to XO'DRIA's attention many times, you are indeed in much more control than you believe. Many of you may, in fact, shall we say, quote, leave it up to faith to decide many things. Faith and belief in this moment of time, we do not use interchangeably. For faith, dear friend, shall we say, can in fact reduce a form of your power, so to speak. We do not mean to say that faith, shall we say, quote, is harmful. This is not the purpose. However, and we do indeed emphasize, dear friends, however, faith, when you come to, shall we say, quote, terms with its origins, does not stem from within oneself. It stems from, shall we say, receiving validation from external output. Shall we say, to, quote, validate your reality. But dear friends, belief will be, shall we say, what chooses your energetic home. This can indeed apply to many things. And this is why it is in fact so crucial to understand that belief will indeed be essential to whatever it is that you so choose to do. And yes, indeed, especially within such, quote, chaotic times. Now, we sense that you say you have additional questions when it comes to, shall we say, quote, how does this relate to the Eight of Pentacles? Well, dear friend, when you think of the Eight of Pentacles, imagine it is, shall we say, addressing your craft. Your craft is indeed very particular, and those of many others watching will in fact, shall we say, have their own craft that they align with. However, your belief fuels this as well. And if that belief is not solid, steady, and shall we say indeed, surely within you, then, dear friends, this will in fact, as many of you may, shall we say, well know, this will in fact affect the abundance that you see, seek, and or bring within your life. We are here for the light. And while everything is indeed light, dear friend, not all light comes in, shall we say, quote, uniformity. So, we take this and we move forward. Page of Swords. More swords. And I feel the urge to set it like this. If we look back, shall we say, quote, on your belief being what got you to this point, you will understand that it took knowing that something was indeed possible to even begin to, shall we say, quote, recognize the door. Imagine, dear friends, that there is indeed a door hidden, quote, within a brick wall. We have used many wall analogies. Oh, we have used many, wall analogies when it comes down to Drea exploring her emotions. And in this exercise, we have begun, shall we say, quote, approaching emotional triggers, visualizing those walls, shall we say, as being parts within herself. And she is beginning to reintroduce them within her personality in a more loving way. Dear friends, this wall can indeed be pertinent to your, quote, daily visuals, which is why we choose to mention it. However, we would like to add something different. Imagine you believe it is indeed only a wall. It will never, dear friend, it will never occur to you that there may be, shall we say, a secret button or, quote, a door carved into the bricks somewhere waiting for you to access it. This, shall we say, starting concept can indeed formulate, shall we say, how you approach your beliefs. Beliefs can always be expanded upon. Indeed, they can always be expanded upon. For, shall we say, what you know as truth will indeed vary for another. We've said to Drea many times before that truth is, shall we say, quote, subjective. And while it does not discount, the, quote, effects you experience, and nor the events that you have, shall we say, withstood, truth is indeed subjective. Now, as we take this, quote, Page of Swords, and we like to analyze it, shall we say, within this moment, you are aware that she is in fact known as what we would like to call a messenger. And the message here, in the case of this reading, dear friends, is simply that your, shall we say, quote, beliefs, will in fact be, shall we say, delivering a multitude of messages to you within this upcoming time frame. For as we understand, and as we stated previously within this video, that there are many changes occurring within your world. The world can be large, and indeed the world can be small. All change matters. All change is important. Will all change, shall we say, be desirable? Dear friend, no. However, recently we have sent Drea, shall we say, a message through song that is important to continue, shall we say, within your knowing that you will do well. It is not only about survival, but it's about using your beliefs as a catalyst to form the creation that you are here to build. If you would like to use this song, shall we say, a bit longer as an analogy, imagine, dear friends, that there's a storm coming. A storm that you have helped to create. And you are choosing to experience it within its fullest form. This is indeed important to your growth. And this is as well indeed important to your realization that in fact you are a creator as well as one who experiences their creations. You are here for a reason, dear friends. And belief may have brought you here to only hear that message. However, fact, shall we say, quote, truth, is indeed embodied within it. For belief is indeed, believe it or not, your truth. When you find yourself sway within your belief, you sway within your truth. And therefore that truth is not, shall we say, what you thought it was. But dear friends, take this time to understand that if you believe that you will weather the storm, then there is, shall we say, quote, no alternative. For it is in fact your truth. Truth, dear friends, feels nothing like anxiety. Truth, dear friends, feels nothing like anxiety. Anxiety is indeed secondary, for it is the reaction you have chosen to, shall we say, quote, a specific truth. Believe it or not. Universe, I feel the need to interject. And I feel like I'm on autopilot right now, so I guess I feel like I need to interject with a question. What do we do when we don't feel like that truth is that truth? Doubt is kind of like, I guess, what I'm experiencing it as needing to come out as. What if we experience doubt? And I know I've gotten a lot of stuff about this, but if there's more to know, and I know there's more for me to implement, what might it be? Doubt, dear friend, is indeed, shall we say, a truth in many ways. However, doubt, as we would like to call it, is also a form of distortion. Follow this. Follow along, if only for a moment. The Magus, the magician, that's what we're gonna call it. Creator within the creation, dear friend. We've just stated that, shall we say, the action that you choose, if it is doubt, was indeed your choice. Validation. While you would wish for us to say that validation is not a requirement for belief, it can indeed be so. And this is why it's important to understand one's own energy, one's own emotions, and one's own, shall we say, quote, sense of direction. For validation is a very effective detour, so to speak. Validation, shall we say, will have you hunting off path for something that you may have walked past many times. Validation, dear friend, is in fact, shall I say, a form of ego seeking security. Doubt, dear friend, as we've told Drea once before, doubt is, shall we say, the mind's way of hoping for the predictable. Dear friend, you have control. You are the creator. Everything begins with you. We would like to take this moment to, shall we say, begin to breathe. For in this moment, you have created silence. In this moment, you have created, shall we say, quote, calmness. While the degree may vary for those who may participate within this moment, it has in fact been created. And if you'd like to bring it down to an even more basic, shall we say, quote, concept, you have created awareness. And awareness is the fuel behind, quote, the belief. Validation, dear friends, is simply, shall we say, quote, awareness of one's own worth and or beliefs. And you can indeed generate this within yourselves. While there may be more to explain when it comes down to validating oneself, we would like to stick to, shall we say, quote, the broad notion that belief is indeed important. And while you do wish to continue this message for more time than we may deem necessary, it's important for you to understand before we close that, shall we say, quote, validation is indeed inevitable when you do so believe. Okay. I'm hearing me saying, so now what? So now we continue. If we would like to, shall we say, quote, only address a few more points. Game. Have I ever seen this card? You have, dear friend. Shall we say, within one use of this deck. Game. You have, shall we say, quote, nothing more to lose. Now that you have become aware, dear friend, that belief is in fact, shall we say, quote, necessary to remember. Remembering this point is indeed only the first step, or shall we say, quote, one of the earlier steps to this notion becoming, shall we say, your truth. However, once it is, just as we've told Drea, it is impossible to backtrack to, shall we say, a former state. Once you know, once you, quote, believe that you are indeed, shall we say, quote, moving forward. It is okay to rest. It is okay to breathe. It is okay to sleep. And while we do address all of these things in the metaphor, shall we say, regression is not on the menu, dear friend. So, let this quote gain be that your awareness, shall we say, has recognized the potential to, quote, realize a new door. For the wall may not be what you expect it to be within the near future. But dear friend, know that on the other side of whatever wall it is that you do so approach, that you will in fact have what you need to either transmute it, to either traverse past it, or indeed, if you so choose, to climb over it. For it's only a matter of time. Now, we wish to take your awareness to, shall we say, quote, one more area. We would like to indeed take your awareness to one more area. And that is within. Belief, as we've said, is within, dear friend. Your belief is within. Your belief is within. It is your responsibility. Your belief from this point, moving forward, is your responsibility. Expose yourself to what you must to formulate new beliefs when indeed necessary. However, within is indeed where it will begin. And I just got nervous. Formulate a plan, dear friend. For belief does indeed take work. Belief does indeed take work. Heart guardian, love and let yourself be loved. You entered this reading performing deep breaths to, quote, center yourself, because your belief is that this energy is produced within the heart chakra. This energy of, shall we say, quote, channeling, dear friend. Your belief is that it's within your heart chakra. Dear friend, truly indeed consider many other things, shall we say, quote, being in part to blame, in part to blame for such a form of communication. It may be your heart chakra, so to speak. For we have led you to resources that have led you to believe this is so. Every energy center within your body is indeed important. However, dear friend, truly believe that there may be indeed more to it than what you have come to know. If we take this a bit further, dear friends, truly believe that you, shall we say, quote, have come a bit further from what you no longer need to know and what you no longer need to believe. And step within your heart for a moment. Step within your heart. For this is, shall we say, quote, metaphorically speaking, indeed, a way to get in touch with your love. Let love be a force within you to lead you to your new beliefs. If you do find yourself in between releasing and indeed adapting. Dear friend, let your love guide you indeed. Love is light, as well as many other things. Love is light, as well as many other things. And if one, we hear three. If three of you hear that, shall we say, lack of love comes from the same program, then indeed, dear friends, we have done what we must within this moment. Release the judgment of what occurs around you so that you can indeed find your truest form of belief, either within yourself, within your system, within your emotions, or within the world as a large, a large entity. And you will go far through the storm. The sun has no choice, dear friends, but to remain in the sky until its job is complete. If you are light, you have, shall we say, that same form of coding within you. You are here until you are not. But truly, dear friend, when were you ever not to begin with? Your belief brought you here. Your belief brought you here, and it will see you the rest of the way. Shapeshifter, transform, and unveil your gifts. So, dear friends, truly begin to release what you must to step into your belief. For you are indeed all powerful. For you are indeed all powerful, all knowing, and you are meant to be here. We welcome you within any energy you stepped into this, shall we say, session with, and we begin to release you with love. For it is, shall we say, quote, the only way moving forward. We love you very much. Magic Guardian. Unlock the magic within. Ooh, so many wings. And I guess y'all are telling me that y'all made the point. For we will see you soon.